RZ. My name is Stan. Before we get started in the video today, I wanted to talk a little bit about Amazon Associates. I'm going to give it a try, and I thought this is the best way to actually make money for the channel with something you're probably going to buy anyways. You don't pay any more for it by going through the affiliates program, but I get a little piece of it. And I actually have to qualify for my affiliate program by completing 3 purchases in 30 days. So my pick today is going to be the Dark Light nitrile gloves that I use when handling hydraulics and oils and things like that to keep grease and grime and stuff off my hands. And the other thing is towel towels. When I use these on my hands, I use these on equipment. Anything you want to clean up, these things are wonderful. I'm never going to recommend anything that I wouldn't use myself. So in my future videos, when you see me say affiliate link below, that's to either something that I'm directly using in the video, replacement parts, or some equipment, or something that I know works. I'm not going to just recommend stuff for the sake of recommending it. All right. But if you'd like to help me out, Dark Light, I use the extra large, but I'll link extra large and just regular large. They're a good fit. They're nice and thick. They don't tear easy, and I use them all the time. All right, let's get into the video. Hey guys, welcome to RZ. My name's Stan, and today we're going over some parts that go on a machine that I'm working on, and this is for a Cincinnati shear. It's a mechanical shear, but it uses a hydraulic hold down system. And each one of these is a hydraulic hold down. Now, this video is probably more for me than it is for you because I want to document this. I was searching around on the internet trying to find specs or parts or a parts diagram or something for these units, and there's one video on YouTube about them, and it's not even this model, but this is an older model. We're just guessing early 60s. And I was going to go through these with you and show you how they go. Now, these were leaking. And when they leak right down on the material, right on the shear table. And what it uses is it's a hydraulic pulse. There's a hydraulic box over on the side of the shear. And every time the shear cycles, it pushes a cam down on a piston and puts a pulse across the top of these units here. This is like a pipe that goes through here, and they kind of daisy chain together. Now I'm going to go through these with you. I'm going to show you the seals. I actually found an expert back east that was able to help me out with the parts breakdowns, what the do's and don't do's and all that like that. But I thought I'd document this and just kind of it's mainly for myself. I can always go back to this video and look at it and see what it's all about. But let's get a little farther into it and show you what these are all about. Okay, well, the gentleman I found back east is his name is Rayco. His name's Roger Knight. Nice guy, mobile service, travels all over the country, and he even sent me his little Christmas card there, which is kind of nice. Super cool guy. But like I say, back east, and I couldn't find anybody here on the West Coast that was knowledgeable about these things. Now, this is a very rudimentary cylinder. I'm going to stack up the pistons and the springs and everything and show you what goes on with the foot. This is a foot, or the stem actually, and how everything stacks up in there. And we'll stack all that together on the table, and I'll show you what it's all about. First of all, the way these things attach is pretty cool. What they do is they've got a thread on one side. They've got this threaded nut. And you just use a hook spanner to pull that apart when you're pulling the machine apart. And there's a face O-ring right in here that butts up to this right here. You say, wow, that's kind of weird. What is that all about right there? That's just a flat face right there that mates up to that other one I showed you. And you see we've got a heavy chamfer right here. Well, this nut slips over here, and they've got 2 half washers. They're chamfered and they sit in here and here, as so. And that nut captures these, and that nut comes back out. And that's what you end up with right there. And that's what bolts this one to the next one. And on it goes. They got these things all the way down the machine. So anyways, that's how these things come apart. You need a pretty substantial spanner to get them loose. I actually bent one spanner to get them loose. In the top, there's a big service plug right here. It's an 1.5 inch service plug. And talking to the guy back east, he says, be real careful with those plugs. You got to put a lot of pressure on them to get them out, and you can break the casting. So make sure they're clamped up really good. Clamp them up in the center. Don't put any pressure on these outside arms. You'll break them off. These are a steel forging. But he said clamp them up in a vise, with wood blocks across here, and put a cheater bar on there and pop that plug out of there. He also said that sometimes he has to replace these plugs because you put so much pressure on them, they become cycloidal, for lack of a better word. And what I had to do, just to check them, I took a piece of 1-inch hex stock, dropped it in there, chucked that in my pipe threader, and then ran through a pipe die, the geometric die, and just chased the threads lightly and got that pipe plug nice and round again. So my pipe plugs are back to being normal. And then you come in here and double check your threads up here with an 1.5 inch pipe top and clean that top. All right, so that's another thing you got to do. And after that, hone your cylinder just like you're doing a regular hydraulic cylinder. And then let's talk about disassembly. There's a thing you have to do to disassemble. It's a press fit. This stem, which is fine thread, and it just keeps going and going. There you go. Okay, this stem, the two pistons that go on there are a press fit. The way they assemble inside of the inside of the housing is a spring, which is a return, obviously, and that's going to send the foot, the elephant's foot, it's going to send it back up into the unit. When it gets hydraulic pressure, it'll extend. Then it uses two pistons above that. So piston one, well, first of all, rod seal here, rod seal, piston, then another rod seal, and then another piston. Now these press on, and I'll tell you how to get them out. That's where actually I got stuck and I needed some help, is how do I get this thing apart? After you pull this apart, after you pull the plug out and get this nut off, that castle nut I showed you right there, after you get that castle nut off, you're looking down inside of there and you're saying, wow, that's really tight. Those pistons aren't coming off. These pistons are an actual press fit on here, and what you have to do is support it properly. You're gonna have to put a lot of pressure on it. But when you do that, you need to support it from this bottom right here. Don't support it from right here or right here. It's rocky, and it'll rock back and forth. So it's real rocky, and you may end up breaking these pipes coming in. But this stem literally just goes up in there, and I want you to notice no dust seal. It's just riding on the stem's just riding on the steel. So that goes up there like that, and that's the way that looks. You need to manually extend that spring. You get a little bit of gap in there and slip your V-block in there underneath, and then you can do your press work from the top, right in the center of that stem, and push that out from those pistons. Just compress that spring and pop that rod out. That's the only way you're going to get it apart. And that's the old way. These pistons here are a press fit. The new pistons over here, according to Mr. Knight, are a slip fit. So it'll be a little easier for the next guy to take apart, but also it makes it probably a little challenging to put together. I haven't put any together yet, but we're going to go through that. All right. So this thing just literally assembles as so. Drop a spring in, and then a rod seal, a piston, a rod seal, a piston, and then the nut in that order. And it uses a cup seal. I want you to notice too. This kind of bugged me. Here's your order right there. Now this goes against everything we ever learned about hydraulics. You notice no wear band on the pistons. And then press fits, I don't usually see press fits on pistons where they attach to cylinders. Usually it's a threaded fit of some type with a nut the way we see here. But they decided to press it, maybe for ease of disassembly or reassembly, just to keep that spring compressed so it didn't fly out at you. But you got to put some pressure on it. After it's been in service for quite some time, you got to put some pressure on it. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to end up taking this and chucking this big end up in the lathe right out at the tip of the jaws, and then bring my tailstock in here and use the tailstock to compress the spring, and with a socket on there, and compress the spring and get the nut spinning all at the same time. And I'll show you how I'll do that here in a little while. But you have to get this up on centers. You notice we got centers here. Centers down there, and get it up on centers, get it spinning, micro polish your shaft, make sure it's not all scored up. I can actually see the original grinding marks on it. So and make sure it spins straight. You don't want this thing wobbling around on you in there. Okay, so here's your elephant's foot, stem, rod, whatever. This is what it looks like inside. So you're gonna have your compression spring, rod seal, don't forget those. Piston, these are the slip fit ones. Then another rod seal. Then the other piston. And then this time your nut actually does something instead of just being a press fit on there. Go ahead and torque that down and get your, line up your key. Get your cotter pin in there. You have to do that down in a hole, but that's the whole assembly there. And that slop you see in there is from the shoulder inside of the main housing. Anyways, that's what you're going to see down in the hole, and that's all you're going to see inside the cavity. That's how much room you got to work. You're going to be looking down through that. I just dropped a spring. Okay. So that's the name of that tune. And we got to do all that over on the lathe to compress this spring to get it to work. Okay, this is probably a horrible camera angle because I can't get you behind, but the lathe, there's no room for the tripod back there. Maybe a little mini tripod would be good up on top of my bench over there. Anyways, we're going to put this stem in the lathe, and we're going to keep it on center, and we're going to let it protrude just a little bit. And I've actually got the lathe in 2 gears at once. This lathe's kind of unique. You can put it in back gear and in direct drive all at the same time. It's like being in 2 gears at once, and as a result, the spindle doesn't budge. So therefore I can tighten against that nut, and I don't have to worry about the lathe spinning. All right, so we've got it pretty much centered up, and like I said before, I micro polished all these. We're going to give this a little bit of lube, just assembly lubricant. You can use whale oil. So we got that. And then we're going to take our housing, which is next. slide that over the whole thing. Actually, let's lubricate the cylinder before we send it home there. I'm going to go down the hole here and just put a coating of oil around there so everything gets started real nice. And where our stem passes through there. There we are. Okay. Next up is our spring. Spring is going to go all the way down. And then next up is a rod seal. Now we've got our piston and rod kit here that we got from that Ryco. So next up, and this is the part where it's, excuse my head, and you got to get a rod seal started, and basically when you put it over threads, roll it over the threads, don't drag it. Just roll that turkey through there. All right, I'm past the threads. And then get something to poke it all the way down on the shaft. I'm going to use an Allen wrench. Now we've got our first piston, and we're going to lube the cup, the stem, just oil it up real good. We've already got our cylinder lubricated, so it should slide in nice. You just don't want any nicks or anything in this as you're assembling it. You want it to go together very, very smooth. And now we're on a slip fit now, so it's not like we're going to be pressing anything together. The way this thing came apart, the old way is pressed together, the new way is slipped together, which so far has been pretty good. All right, I'm going to see if I can send that piston home. Next up is another rod seal. Tiny amount of oil, and just roll it over those leading edge threads, and don't damage your rod seals. Next piston. And here's where things start to get tight in there. You know, now you're starting to compress a spring, and your piston stack is exceeding the thread length and all that. So this is where a little bit of compression is going to help you out. All right. Now, I need to go get a socket. What we're going to do is we're going to put a socket in, or put the nut in a socket, and then put the socket on the tailstock, and we're going to use the tailstock to compress the spring while we turn the socket by hand and get the nut started. After it's started, we can run it all the way down and use the threads to compress the spring the rest of the way. So let me go get a socket that I can do this with, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I got a socket and a short extension, and that nut just drops down in there. And we're going to get that started. Bring this dude in here, and just give us a little bit of, there we go. Just give us a little bit of compression with the tailstock. We've got a mechanical advantage over that spring. It feels like we're starting. Yep. I'm just moving the tailstock in as that nut progresses. Okay. Easy. Oh yeah, she started. Simple. All right. So we're starting on the nut in there. I doubt if you can see much of that, but that's the pecking order for all this. When we go get a ratchet, we'll run it down. Remember, our lathe is in 2 gears at once, so she's not going to turn. And using the same rig, back in the hole. Now you can feel that spring compressing. Now you're compressing that die spring on the bottom. And the whole housing should move in and out, as so. Now all we have to do is finish torquing that nut and drop a cotter pin in there, and it's done. That's the spring pressure you see there. All right, So that's how you assemble the lower end of it. Next up, we got to put the we got to get the cotter pin in there, of course, but then we got to get this plugged, and then they're ready to install. Okay, and last up, you need to clock the housing, and you have to work that cotter pin through the two pipe holes, which is no fun at all. But and make sure your cotter pin's tight, because when the cylinder extends, that cotter pin's going to go down in the bore. So make sure nothing's hanging out, nothing can rotate, nothing can slip. Get your cotter pin in nice and tight. At this point, the cylinder's reassembled. We're ready to put this pipe plug in. This will be the last bit of assembly before we can put it on the machine. All right. Okay, guys. Well, that's it on the Cincinnati hydraulic hold downs for a shear. You know, we had to spend quite a bit of time on these to get them cleaned and wait for parts to come from back east and all that. And like I say, special thanks to the folks out of Rayco Incorporated. Roger Knight, he's a nice guy. Spent some time on the phone with me, talked about these. I talked about how simplistic they were with the lack of dust seals, with the lack of wear bands and things like that, the things I'm used to seeing in a hydraulic cylinder. And the way he explained it is these things are completely Fred Flintstone, very rudimentary. But we're going to go put them back in, see how they run. Okay, we're out in the field. We just got done installing everything. It's kind of a noisy place. I got to yell a little bit. This is the actual hydraulic box. I've got the lid off of it because I was inspecting everything. I was looking for foreign matter. We drained it. We changed the oil. The oil down there is pretty clean. And this is a cam right here. Every time the machine cycles, this cam comes around and bangs on a piston. And then this is an accumulator spring, which regulates the pressure that goes out to the hold downs. The pulse goes through this pipe right here and goes out to our hold downs, which probably look familiar to you when you walk around this thing. So those probably look familiar to you. And there's the two that we rebuilt. And when you put all this back together, obviously it's full of air. And it's not a full recirculating system. Okay, I'm gonna have to do a voiceover here. It just got too noisy in there and you can't even hear what I'm saying. Right here I'm showing you the bleed off valve that goes to the upper manifold and a pipe plug. And we use that to burp out all the air and all the old nasty oil out of the manifold there and get it down into this bucket. And then you replace that pipe plug right there. And you need to be cycling the machine the whole time you're doing this. And then up above, there's a very small return pipe, and that goes back to tank, and that'll help bleed a little bit of the excess air off, but you need to get this system going. This valve stays closed during the entire, when it's in operation, but as you know, hydraulic oil contains air all the time, so you always need to get the air out of it, you know, just as on a maintenance level. Cycle the machine and open that valve and let it go back to tank maybe once a week. And I'll actually show you, this is one of our rebuilt valves right here. And I'm just going to cycle the machine one time. And that's all it does. So that's just an elephant foot to come down, hold the material. There's our other one. So it just holds the material down so that when your shear blade comes down, your material can't tip or slip. All right, guys. Well, that's it. You know, I thought I'd put all these in and bring you along for the ride and actually let you see these things in action, how they work. Now, we were leaking out down here underneath. We had a lot of oil and stuff coming down underneath. If your pipe plug's leaking, if you wrap a rag around this, your rag will get wet, and that'll tell you it's your pipe plug and not your stem or your rod. So, so far everything's really good. These connections are all tight. We checked all these for oil after we cycled it a bunch of times. So we're good. This thing's ready to go into service.